Results time for all the bets that I placed on the UFC Vegas 117 card for the €100 Bankroll challenge. A lot of the bets were based around method of victory prediction props, with several fights where the best MOV predictors were either strongly on one side with how a fighter would win or split between two different methods. So instead of mostly betting money lines, I ended up mixing things up with 2 moneyline bets, 3 decision bets and 3 fights where I split the bet between 2 method of victories. In total I placed €40 in bets across 8 fights, and based on the potential payouts, winning 5 out of the 8 bets should on average be enough for a small profit. So naturally I won exactly 5 out of 8 bets, but somehow still lost money. Let's go through the bets. My first bet was Nicole Cagliari by decision or a submission. She was picked by 100% of the best predictors and the best favorite predictors, but the best MOV predictors were split between decision and submission. 5 out of 9 for decision and 3 out of 9 for submission. So instead of choosing one method or a moneyline bet, I split the bet 75% on a decision and 25% on submission, to get a roughly even payout on both outcomes. And if I would win on one of these outcomes, I would get a slightly better payout than on a moneyline bet. And she did win via submission, winning my first bet. The second bet was Elise Ardeline moneyline. She was also another strong favorite, around 85% picked on average by the best predictors. Most of the best MOV predictors, 5 out of 7, had her winning via decision, for around 70%, and combined with the odds of -102 on average, I didn't really like to go for a decision here. So I kept it simple and just went with the moneyline bet at -200. And luckily for me, I only went with the moneyline, because she did win, but not via decision, but by submission. The third bet was the most interesting, because I've never placed a bet like this in this series. The fight between Brundage and Petrosky was pretty close in picks, with around 60% favoring Petrosky. But the best MOV predictors were split between Brundage by KO TKO or Petrosky by decision. Both were picked 4 out of 8. So after playing around with some of the bet sizes, I put 38% of €5 on Brundage by TKO or €1.90, and I put 62% on Petrosky by decision for €3.10. This way the payout was almost the same for both outcomes, and it did pay off, because Brundage ended up winning the fight by KO/TKO. So at this point we started tonight with 3 out of 3 correct, just like we did on the previous event. So things were looking very good, which usually means danger in this series. My fourth bet was Jacqueline Cavalcanti via decision. Cavalcanti was another huge favorite, around 88% by both the best predictors and the best method of victory predictors to win specifically by decision. Being such a huge favorite and with better odds of -102 compared to the -155 moneyline odds, the prop bet clearly looked like the better value. But unfortunately, this was the first bet that I lost, because she ended up losing via decision. My fifth bet was placed on Tommy Gant moneyline. He was one of the biggest favorites in picks on this card, 93% picked on average by the best predictors. But unlike some of the other fights, the best MOV predictors were pretty divided on how he would win, with 1 out of 9 by KO TKO, 4 out of 9 via submission and 2 out of 9 via decision. And when it's so divided, I'd rather just keep it simple and stick with the moneyline bet. And Tommy Gant ended up winning by KO or TKO, so I won my moneyline bet. The sixth bet was Bernard Sopai by decision. Another pretty big favorite with 83% picked on average by the best predictors. And when looking at the best MOV predictors, one thing that stood out was that all of them predicted this fight will go to the decision. 2 out of 8 for his opponent and 6 out of 8 for Sopai. So instead of taking the -133 moneyline, I went with the much better +160 odds on decision. And once again, the fighter I placed money on won their fight. Just not by decision, but via submission. Which on paper was a very unlikely outcome to happen, with average odds of +1000. At this point, submissions are becoming my biggest enemy, because also on the last card a lot of bets were lost via submission. My seventh bet was another split bet, which was on Modestas Bukauskas to win by KO TKO or a decision. Bukauskas was another pretty decent favorite, with around 79% by the best predictors, but picked 100% by the best MOV predictors. But they were perfectly split between KO TKO 50% and decision 50%. So once again I split the bet between both methods for slightly better value than the moneyline. And luckily this one came through via decision, a split decision. My last bet was on Malcolm Wellmaker moneyline. At first I considered splitting the bet between KO TKO or decision, But the average payout was barely higher than the money line, only a few cents difference. So I decided it wasn't worth complicating things and just went with the money line. And unfortunately, this one lost via submission. Always submissions. And that was the last bet for this card. So in total I placed 8 bets, of which 5 won and 3 lost. Exactly the number of wins we expected to be enough for a slight profit. But because 2 of the 3 bets that I lost had the highest potential payouts, we still ended up slightly negative. I staked €40 and got back €37.58 for a loss of €2.42 and a return on investment of minus 6%. Although we had a slight loss, a lot of the bets were actually pretty solid. 2 out of 8 fighters that I placed a bet on lost their fight. The split bet strategy worked well again and all 3 of them won. And moneyline bets won 2 out of 3 times. The biggest issue once again was method of victory variance, especially submissions again, ruining decision bets, just like last week. But overall, I still think these are the kinds of bets that should do well long term, because the value is much better than heavy moneyline bets. So a small loss this week, but definitely not one of the more painful weeks of the Bankroll challenge. And at this moment the bankroll is €154.78 for almost 55% profit. Let's see if we can bounce back from the small loss next event and keep the bankroll growing in the right direction. Thanks for watching and I'll see you all in the next one.